President Trump is furious with Canada again, just as he thought the month of June was coming to a close without any more drama for Canada. In a characteristically explosive move, Trump abruptly announced that all trade discussions with Canada were terminated effective immediately. The reason? Canada's new digital services tax, a modest 3% levy on revenue generated by large online platforms operating in Canada, set to take effect retroactively from 2023. Trump called the tax a direct and blatant attack on our country. A curious statement, given that the tax isn't targeted at America, but at corporate giants like Meta, Google, and Amazon, who profit heavily from foreign markets while often paying far less than traditional bricks and mortar businesses. Still, this was no ordinary disagreement. Trump's latest hissy fit wasn't just about Canada. This was a strategic move, a shot across the bow not only for Ottawa, but also for Brussels, Paris, Berlin, and Bangkok. Any country even thinking about taxing Silicon Valley's digital dominance, because make no mistake, this has been building for years. The idea behind the digital services tax is simple. If US-based tech giants are making billions from users in other countries, such as Canada, those countries should be allowed to collect tax on that revenue, just as they would from any local business. Canada's version isn't even particularly aggressive. It only targets companies with over $20 million in Canadian digital revenue and applies a 3% tax above that threshold. It's also been in the works since 2021 following public consultations and after Meta infamously blocked Canadian news on Facebook and Instagram to avoid paying publishers under the Online News Act. Even US Ambassador to Canada Peter Hoekstra chimed in this week saying Canada should reconsider the digital services tax entirely if it wants to maintain what he called constructive economic ties with the US, which, let's be honest, sounds a lot like diplomatic code for do what Trump says or suffer the consequences. But here's where it gets global. Canada is not alone. The European Union has long signaled its intent to impose a digital services tax of its own. France, of course, already tried and faced tariffs from Trump the first time round. Spain, Italy, and Austria are all preparing variations. The OECD has tried to broker a global solution, but delays and lobbying have slowed progress. Of course, Meta, Google, and other digital giants knew that digital services taxes would eventually land, and they knew exactly who they wanted in their corner when that day came. Of course, Donald Trump. That's why the tech industry, particularly Mark Zuckerberg and Meta and its executives, lined up early and visibly behind Trump. They donated generously, of course. They showed up at his inauguration. They praised his vision for innovation and the digital economy, not because they liked the man necessarily, but because Trump plays enforcer. He doesn't just oppose digital taxes, he crushes them, or at least threatens to do so in ways that would make most small to mid-sized economies flinch. That's what makes him useful. As one analyst put it, they paid protection money and now it's time to collect. This week's eruption against Canada was the moment big tech has been preparing for. Trump isn't just defending American companies, he's defending the global dominance of the US tech empire, an empire that now expects political loyalty in return. Sounding very much like a mobster, he made the message crystal clear. We have all the cards, Trump said. We don't want to do anything bad, but economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it. Such a nice country. Shame if anything were to happen to it. Classic bully talk. But that's the point. Tariffs under Trump aren't about negotiation. They're about submission. He is behaving like a dictator. For Canada, the consequences were swift. Trump threatened a new raft of tariffs, potentially aimed at Canadian autos, aluminium, lumber, anything that would create political and economic pressure. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed that a Section 301 probe is being launched, laying the groundwork for retaliatory tariffs equivalent to the $2 billion tax bill US tech firms would face. Trump's message, as always, is back down or bleed. Already, Canadian exports to the US dropped from 51.6 billion in May last year, 2024, to 43.9 billion this year, a loss of 7.7 billion Canadian dollars. At first, Canada didn't blink. Finance Minister Francois Philippe Champagne declared the tax was going ahead regardless. Ottawa had planned for this fight. The digital services tax had gone through proper legislative processes. Canada, after all, wasn't ambushing anyone. They had gone through the proper channels and processes. Let's remember, these companies we are talking about, like Meta, are massive monopolies. They are creating huge unemployment in the news media industries. They control huge swathes of the world with their platform dominance. They can even bring down governments in certain countries. Surely it's perfectly normal for them to pay their way. But then came the cave in by Prime Minister Carney. By midweek, Prime Minister Mark Carney, facing mounting economic pressure, business backlash, and the looming threat of US retaliation, announced a pause on the enforcement of the tax. The official line was that this was a tactical decision and that Canada still supported international cooperation on digital taxation. But let's be honest, Trump's threats worked. Carney, who came into office promising to steer Canada through global economic storms and reduce dependence on the US, found himself cornered. He had two competing obligations: uphold Canadian sovereignty on one side and defend a well-considered tax policy, or protect the national economy from the chaos of a Trump-led trade war. Caught between principle and pragmatism, Carney chose to shield Canada from immediate damage. Carney knows a full-blown 25% tariff scenario could shrink Canada's GDP by about 2.6%, equivalent to roughly 78 billion Canadian dollars. That would translate to about 1,900 Canadian dollars per household per year. It wasn't a proud moment, but it was a calculated one. Sometimes survival is more important than pride. So this could just be a delay, not a defeat. Carney's government has signaled that its larger strategy hasn't changed. Ottawa continues pushing forward with economic diversification, passing new laws to fast-track national infrastructure and energy projects, and just last month signing the most expansive security and defence pact the EU has ever inked with a non-member country. Canada, of course, wants out of its economic reliance on the US, but that won't happen overnight. So for now, Carney has chosen to ride out the storm. Yes, Trump got his win. Meta and Google got their protection, and Canada lives to fight another day. But the message to the rest of the world, especially Europe, is loud and clear. If you tax American tech, Trump will come for you. So that's where we're at. Trump's making an example out of former ally Canada to send a message to the rest of the world. Don't mess with big tech, not unless you're ready to take on the economic hit, or worse, the political humiliation. And while Carney has hit pause, the broader battle over taxing digital giants is far from over. But now I'll let you guys decide. Should Carney have caved in? For me, I honestly feel for the guy. He's really stuck between a rock and a hard place right now, trying to protect Canadian sovereignty without triggering an economic war with the US. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was this a smart move on Carney's part, or should he have held the line? If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.